Ah, so you wish to hear a tale, child? Come closer. The fire's crackling warm, and the kettle's just begun to sing. Now, listen well. This ain't a tale you'll find in books or sung by bards in busy taverns. No, this is a story whispered by moss and murmured by the wind through the hollows of Lanternwood Forest. Back in the days when stars still sang and rivers remembered your name, there was a village called Whimsical. Small, quiet, tucked between rolling hills and thistle fields. The villagers were simple folk, content with warm bread and rain that fell gentle on the crops. But bordering Whimsical was a forest so old the trees leaned in close like elders sharing secrets. That forest was not to be trifled with. Children were warned, never stray beyond the ivy wall. Never follow a flickering light, and never, under any moon, speak your name aloud in the woods. But as all good stories go, someone didn't listen. Her name was Elsha. Barely 13 summers, sharp-eyed and restless, with copper curls that never stayed tied and questions that never ceased. Her grandme, in fact, tried to keep her busy with chores and charms, but her spirit was wilder than the winds over the moor. One dusk, as the mist crept in and the crickets began their song, Elsha saw a light, soft golden, dancing just beyond the ivy wall. It wasn't firelight, no. It shimmered like the glow from dragonfly wings and smelled faint with cinnamon and rain. She followed it, or she did, and by the time she realized her feet had crossed the threshold into Lanternwood, the path behind her was gone. Ah, child. The woods do not take kindly to curious hearts, but they do take them. Once Elsha crossed the ivy wall, the world changed. The air thickened, humming with a song only the trees seemed to understand. Light dripped through the canopy like melted amber, and roots shifted beneath her feet as if they too were watching. And indeed, they were. The forest was alive, not in the way birds and beasts make it so, but with an older, quieter kind of life. Elsha walked barefoot and silent, following that flickering light deeper and deeper. It never strayed too far ahead, always just beyond her reach. It paused sometimes, as if to beckon. It knew her name, whispered it, even like a sigh between the leaves. Elsha, she should have turned back then. But the thing about children is, they often mistake danger for wonder. The deeper she went, the stranger it grew. Trees stood in circles, their branches arched like cathedral ceilings. Mushrooms glowed faintly blue along the trunks. And once, she passed a tree with dozens of little windows carved into it, each window flickering with candlelight. Tiny shadows moved inside, but when she stopped to look closer, they vanished. Then came the watchers. She didn't see them at first, only felt them. A pressure in her ears, a prickle at the base of her neck. But soon, among the branches above, she saw them, figures with long arms and longer eyes, cloaked in bark and lichen, their faces half masked, half moon. They made no sound, only watched. Elsha, brave as a fox but wise as a stone, called up to them. "I'm not here to steal. I just want to see the light." That's when the first one moved. It dropped from the tree in a single graceful motion, tall and thin as a whisper, and stood before her. Its voice was dry like autumn leaves. "You follow the lantern light? Our path does not return. Are you certain, child?" Elsha swallowed. Her heart pounded. "I am," she said, though she wasn't. The watcher did not smile. It simply turned and began to walk. The light followed, and so did she. Oh! But she had no idea what waited at the end of that path. The watcher led Elsha deeper into Lanternwood, though no path could be seen. Only weaving shadows and the hush of ancient branches. The forest opened and closed around her like a breathing thing. Time softened. Minutes felt like hours, hours like breaths. Eventually they reached a clearing where the ground was bare of leaves, as if something had swept them aside. In the centre stood a tree larger than any she had ever seen. Its bark was dark as soot. Its roots stretched like fingers across the earth, gnarled and trembling with quiet power. There was no wind, but the branches creaked as if remembering storms long past. At the base of this tree, buried between two great roots, was a door. It was small, round, and carved of stone, not wood. Moss framed its edges, and a symbol was etched upon it, a spiral of thorns wrapped around a flame. Your flame. Wait. The watcher raised one long arm and pressed 5 fingers against the stone. The door shuddered. From inside came the faint sound of music, delicate and sad, like a lullaby played on glass. The door swung open, and no more words, the watcher murmured. Only choices. Elsha, bold and burning with questions, hesitated, but the light, the strange golden shimmer, slipped inside without waiting. And so she followed. Beneath the roots was not a tunnel, nor a den, but a stairwell spiraling down. Its walls were made of petrified wood, and glowing beetles scuttled along the ceiling. With each step, her heartbeat grew louder. There were no torches, no lanterns. The light came from the walls themselves, pulsing softly, like breath. After what felt like hours, the stairs ended in a great cavern, its roof lost in shadow. Crystals jutted from the earth like frozen lightning, humming with energy, and in the middle stood a table carved from pure moonstone. Upon it sat 3 objects, a key made of thorn, a jar of stormlight, and a mirror no bigger than a coin. A voice, not the watcher's but something older, filled the chamber. One is for the door you opened, one is for the path ahead, one is for the price. Elsha stepped forward and chose. As stepped forward and chose. Elsie's fingers hovered over the 3 items. The thorn key pulsed with warmth. Like a living thing, the jar of stormlight buzzed, tiny sparks flitting inside like trapped lightning bugs. And the mirror, cold, silent, it showed no reflection at all. The voice returned, deeper now and more distant. It's a 1 to unlock, 1 to shield, 1 to reveal. Choose wisely, child of Ember. Elsha didn't know what child of Ember meant, but something deep in her chest stirred at the words. Something old, something hers. She looked again. The key seemed obvious. Doors need keys, but it was made of thorns. Would it hurt her? The jar of stormlight was beautiful, mesmerizing, but wild. The mirror, though, it scared her. A thing that shows no reflection must be hiding something. Still, Elsha was clever. Not book clever like scholars, but story clever. The kind of clever that comes from listening to wind at night and learning what shadows say when they move. She took the mirror. The moment her hand closed around it, the cavern dimmed. The other 2 objects vanished in a blink of blue flame. The table cracked down the middle with a sound like breaking ice. A gust of wind blew through the chamber, though no door had opened. The voice, if it could still be called that, died through the darkness. Through the darkness, you have chosen the truth. The hardest of 3. Now see what must be seen. The mirror warmed in her palm and then glowed. Slowly, a face began to form within it. Not hers, not anyone she knew. An old woman, her eyes silver with tears and her skin like bark. The woman sat in a cottage lit by candlelight, hands clasped around a cup of tea. She was whispering, though no sound came through. Elsha blinked. It was me. Oh yes, child, I saw her. I felt it, like a tug across time. That's when I knew my Elsha had crossed into the forest, into the stories beneath stories. That's when I began to wait. And the mirror? It did more than show her me. It began to whisper her own name back to her, backward, sideways, in voices she didn't recognize. That was the price. Once you take the mirror of truth of... The cavern fell into silence, heavy and complete. Elsha stood, the coin-sized mirror burning against her chest like a second heartbeat. She hadn't even realized she'd tucked it into the string around her neck. Throbbed with a steady pulse, one that echoed in her ears. The table was gone. The stairs gone too. Only the floor of the cavern remained, and even that began to change. Symbols unfurled beneath her feet, curling lines and old runes glowing faintly silver. As she took a step, the ground shifted, reshaping itself into a narrow bridge of crystal, that reached out into nothingness he missed. She hesitated. Below was endless black. Not shadow, not stone, just absence. But the mirror hummed again, and the echo of her name whispered from somewhere up ahead. Elsha, she walked. Each step left a trail of soft light behind her. The bridge rose and dipped, turned and twisted, but never broke. As she walked, strange shapes formed in the darkness, silhouettes of people, places she'd never seen. One was a girl made of smoke who wore her own face and smiled with too many teeth. Another was a boy with antlers and golden eyes who wept without sound. He looked away. Eventually, the bridge ended at a gate. One woven from living vines, thick as tree trunks and green as spring. It pulsed like it breathed, and at its center hung a pendant of stone shaped like an open eye. The gate spoke. Not with a voice, no, but with a question that entered her mind like a thought not her own. What is your name, truly? Elsha opened her mouth. That was the name her mother gave her, the one Gran had used, the one stitched into her coat. But the forest wanted more than that. It wanted the name beneath the name, the soul's whisper, the mirror on her chest flickered. And in her mind an answer surfaced. She spoke it aloud. The vines withered. The pendant crumbled, and the gate opened. Beyond it, moonlight spilled into a field of silver grass, and the stars overhead blinked as if they'd just woken up. Elsha stepped through the living gate and into a world that didn't feel like it belonged beneath any forest. The sky above was vast and close all at once, stitched with stars so bright they hummed. The grass underfoot shimmered silver, each blade slender and whispering secrets in a language made of wind. It was not night, nor was it day. Time bent in that place like the light itself, curbed and swirled and forgotten. The path behind her dissolved into mist. Ahead, the field rolled onward until it met the curve of a hill, crowned by strange shapes, flickering like candle flames. As she walked, she saw them more clearly. They were not flames, they were creatures. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Small, delicate, four-legged. Their bodies were made of stardust and smoke. Their hooves left trails of light where they trotted, and their eyes were like pieces of the night sky. Elsha stood frozen, breath caught in her chest. A star herd. A star herd. They moved as one, graceful and without sound, and at the center of them stood a figure, tall, robed in a cloak of midnight, hair woven with comets. The figure turned. Beneath the hood, no face could be seen, only a gentle glow. You spoke your true name, it said. The mouth never moved. You walk the field of forgotten things. Tell me, child of ember, what do you seek? Elsha thought of turning back, but there was no back, only forward. Her voice trembled. I followed the light. The lantern light, said the figure. A few follow it with eyes open. You will still survive the path of names. You must be brave or foolish. Elsha stepped closer. I want to understand. Why did it call me? The star herder tilted its head. But not all are called. Some are remembered. Then, with a wave of its sleeve, the herd parted. And there, nestled in the grass, lay a lantern. Simple, glass. Its flame burned steady, soft gold. Elsha stepped forward, reaching for it. But the herder raised a hand. Take the lantern, and you will carry its burden. Light reveals and burns. Elsha hesitated, then nodded. She took it, and the stars began to move. The moment Elsha's fingers closed around the lantern's handle, the sky above began to stir. Not like a storm, no, but like memory itself was waking. Stars swirled, forming patterns that spun and twisted like threads on a loom. The field darkened as if the world was holding its breath. The lantern in her hand burned brighter, casting rings of golden light around her feet. The star herder stepped back, its comet-woven hair trailing behind like smoke. It watched silently as the stars began to speak. Not in words, but in pictures. Visions, woven of light and shadow, danced in the air around her. Elsha stood still as the story unfolded. She saw a younger version of herself, though not quite herself, playing near the edge of Lantern Wood. But this girl's eyes held fire. real fire, flickering and ancient. The villagers whispered about her in fear. Witchborn, they said, entangled in old magic. Then came the storm. A real one, wild, furious, unnatural. It tore through the village. Crops drowned. Homes collapsed. But somehow the storm curled around Elsha and left her untouched. That's when they decided. She had to be hidden. Sealed, forgotten. Her name was buried, her magic dimmed. But the forest remembered. Elsha gasped. The visions vanished. The stars went still. I caused the storm? She whispered. I know, the star herder said gently. But it came for you. Why? Because you were born not of one world, but two. Elsha looked down at the lantern, or you were. It pulsed like a heartbeat, as if echoing the truth. What am I? The herder's glow dimmed. Threshold. A door. A child of ember born of ash and spark. It reached into the sky and plucked a single falling star, placing it in a hand. The star became a seed, warm and humming. You will need this. The next path leads to the hollow court. Elsha clutched both lantern and seed tightly. The air changed. The field began to fade, and the ground beneath her feet gave way. Elsha didn't fall. Not quite. It was more like being carried by wind that had forgotten its direction. Light and shadow wrapped around her in twisting ribbons until the silver field vanished entirely. She landed gently, though the air here was heavy and cool. She stood at the center of a stone hall, wide and tall, its ceiling lost in mist. The walls were carved from roots, twisted together like braided hair. No windows, no doors. Only a long path forward lit by flickering blue lanterns hung on vines. The hollow court, it felt empty and yet watched, like the very walls were listening. You walked forward, each step echoing like it had a memory. At the far end of the hall, beneath a canopy of roots, sat a throne. Not gold, nor silver, but made of black wood and bone. And on that throne sat the queen, not of flesh and blood, but shadow and silhouette, Her form flickered as though memory had trouble holding her shape. Elsha, the queen said, her voice deep and hollow. You bear the lantern. You carry the mirror. You've seen the truth. Why do you come before us? Elsha lifted her chin. Her voice was steadier than she felt. Amen, she felt. But because I need to know who I am. I need to know what the forest wants from me. The queen's eyes, deep voids in a faceless mask, studied her. But the forest does not want. It remembers. You are a forgotten promise, a root cut from its tree, a whisper never spoken aloud. She stood and the hall grew darker. You walked willingly. You followed the light. You spoke your true name. That makes you a threat or a key. Or a key. I don't want power, Elsha said quickly. I want to understand. I want to belong. The queen tilted her head. Then you must do what none before you have done. Elsha clutched the seed the star herder gave her. It pulsed warmly in her palm. You must return what was stolen. You must wake the ember tree. Before Elsha could ask what that meant, the throne cracked behind the queen. From it rose a door of flame, suspended in midair. Enter, said the queen, and take your final test. And then the lantern dimmed. The door burned without heat. Its fire bright as noon, yet not scorching. It hovered just above the throne's ruin, humming with a low, ancient sound. Elsha stared at it, her fingers tight around the seed and lantern. The mirror at her chest was utterly still, as if even it dared not speak. She looked back once. The hollow court was silent. The queen had vanished like breath on glass. Elsha took a breath and stepped through. Flame swallowed her, but it did not hurt. Instead, it felt like walking through memory made light, like every forgotten dream, every silenced wish, brushed against her skin all at once. She emerged into a world of ash and silence. The sky above was dark red like a wound. Trees stood in rows, charred and leafless, their branches clawing upward. The ground beneath her was dry, cracked, and pulsing faintly like the surface of a resting heart. This was no place of life. This was where magic went to die. and at the center of it all stood a tree, taller than towers, black as coal, split down the middle by a jagged scar. Its root held around bones and stone. Above it floated a broken crown made of iron thorns, spinning slowly in place. The lantern flickered violently in her hand. The seed pulsed harder, almost painfully. She stepped forward. With every step, the whispers grew louder, not words, but feelings. Sorrow, rage, betrayal, faces began to rise from the ground. Not physical, no, just memories made of smoke and pain. A girl with burned hands, a boy turned to ash, a mother weeping for a name she had forgotten. Elsha stopped. The tree's bark split again, and from it emerged a shape, her own reflection, twisted and wreathed in fire. The flame Elsha spoke. You came to wake me, but first, can you face me? Elsie's heart pounded. This is not about want, said the double. It's about truth. The fire you fear is your own. And then it lunged. The flame Elsha struck fast, blazing limbs outstretched, eyes lit with fury. Elsha barely dodged the heat licking her skin. The lantern swung wildly from her hand, and the seed in her pocket pulsed like a frightened heart. Her reflection moved like a dancer, fluid and fierce. Every motion mirrored Elsha's own, but twisted, harder, sharper. It didn't bleed. This didn't tire. It burned. Are you not me? Elsha shouted, circling the scarred tree. Are you just fear? I am the truth, the flame replied. The part you buried, the bark you smothered. Another strike. Elsha raised the mirror just in time. Flame met glass, and there was a sound like cracking ice. The mirror flared, and for a moment, the fiery double staggered. Elsha's breath came hard and fast. You're the fire that destroyed the village. No, the double whispered, flickering uncertainly. I'm the fire they feared. Elsha froze. That was the truth. She hadn't caused the storm. She hadn't called down lightning. But her existence, wild half magic, born of something older than the village understood, had frightened them. They feared her before she'd ever lit a single flame. The mirror glowed warmer now, no longer cold. It pulsed like a heartbeat in rhythm with the seed in her pocket. Elsha lowered it. I'm not here to kill you, she said softly. I'm here to wake us. The flame Elsha trembled. You accept me? Elsha nodded. The figure stepped forward. Slowly, gently, it pressed its hands to Elsha's chest and vanished into her like a breath into a lung. Suddenly, the lantern burned brighter than ever before. The seed leapt in her hand, sprouting a single glowing root that burrowed instantly into the earth. The ember tree groaned. Its charred bark began to glow red, cracks healed, branches twitched. The iron crown above it shattered with a sound like thunder, and golden light erupted from the roots. Magic returned, not wild, not angry, awake, and Elsha stood at the center of it, burning but unbroken. The ember tree rose with new life. Its bark, once charred and broken, now gleamed with veins of gold and deep crimson. Leaves unfurled like flames caught in slow motion, and from its highest branch bloomed a flower of pure light. The ground shuddered, not with fear, but relief. The hollow forest, lanternwood, as the village called it, was waking. Not just as trees and stone, but as memory, spirit, and song. All around Elsha, the ashen land shifted, colours returning like breath to frozen glass. She could feel it. Magic was not something apart from her, it was her. Not a weapon, not a curse, but a heartbeat. A truth the world had tried to forget. From the roots of the tree rose the watchers, those tall bark-clad guardians who had once only observed. They bowed. One stepped forward, eyes bright with sublight. You have woken the ember tree, it said. You carry the flame and the seed. You are no longer visitor. You are kin. Elsha swallowed, unsure. What does that mean? It means, came a familiar voice. You belong here. She turned. There, standing just beyond the roots, was the star herder. Their cloaks still shimmered, but their face was clearer now. Ageless, neither young nor old, and their eyes held entire galaxies. They nodded at her, as if everything had unfolded just as it should. The flame within you is ancient, the herder said, carried through generations, silenced, yes, feared, yes, but never lost. And what now? Elsha asked. And now, the herder replied, you must decide what to do with it. The lantern in her hand flickered. The seed at her feet grew, fast, sprouting a small tree of her own. Its bark was copper, its leaves soft gold. She touched it gently. You want to bring this back, she said, to the world that tried to forget it. The herder inclined her head. Then your path is not finished. One trial remains. Elsha looked up, steady now. What trial? Return to Whimsical, the watcher said, and be seen. The forest did not let her return the way she came. No, Lanternwood had changed, and so had she. The trees bowed as she passed. The air felt different, alive with her breath. She carried the lantern at her side, its golden light now steady and calm, no longer flickering like a frightened thing. The mirror still hung from her neck, cool and silent, and the seedling, the little golden tree, was now growing in a small pot of emberstone she cradled in her arm. Its leaves chimed faintly when touched by wind. The watchers escorted her as far as the old root gate, now blooming with silver ivy. There the star herder waited once more, standing by a path that hadn't been there before. A dirt trail, soft with moss, leading out of the deep woods. You carry the forest now, they said. Its memory, its flame, and its truth. Elsha looked down the path. It led toward the hills near Whimsical. They won't believe me, she murmured. Not all truth is for believing, the herder said. Some is only for remembering. She stepped onto the path. The forest behind her didn't close. It simply faded, like a dream at the edge of waking. The deeper she walked into the familiar field, the heavier her heart felt. There was joy in her bones, but fear too. A fear no magic could undo. The village came into view as the sun began to rise. Soft light spilled across the rooftops. Smoke curled from chimneys. People were beginning to stir, unaware that the girl they'd whispered about, the girl they'd buried under fear and silence, was walking back to them with magic in her hands. She reached the first stone wall. The baker's son, Talin, round-faced and kind-hearted, was the first to see her. Rose. Elsha, he breathed. She raised her lantern. The light fell across her face. I've come home, she said. And with that, the bells in the village square rang out, though no one had pulled their rope. The bells rang without hands to ring them, and the village gathered. Elsha stood in the square, framed by morning sun, a lantern lit with a steady flame. Children peeked from behind aprons. Old men gripped walking sticks tighter, and the council, dressed in their worn robes, emerged with creased brows and sharper words. Elsha Fern, one said, Councillor Thorn, tall and stony-faced. You were lost to the forest. None who go beyond the ivy will return unchanged. She nodded. Yeah, I did change. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. You carry strange things, Thorn said, eyeing the lantern and the golden sapling at her hip. Dangerous things. I carry the truth, he said calmly. And memory. And a bit of magic, yes, but it was never gone. Only hidden. Only hidden. A voice from the crowd, soft and familiar, a gran. Elsha? She turned. The old woman looked as if she'd aged a year for every day Elsha had been gone. But her eyes still held that fierce spark. I'm here, Gran, she whispered. The villagers fell silent. Gran stepped forward, ignoring the Count's dame. She looked at the lantern, then the tree. Finally, her gaze found Elsha's eyes. You've seen it, haven't you? The deep magic, the old paths. Elsha nodded. Gran smiled, then welcome back, little spark. That was all it took. Fear didn't vanish, but it softened. The children crept forward first. Helen touched the golden leaves. The healer asked quiet questions about the light. Even the blacksmith offered her a nod, gruff but real. Not everyone came forward. Some turned away. Some would always fear what they couldn't name. But others saw her and believed. And that was enough. That night, Elsha slept in her own bed. The lantern rested by the window. The sapling glowed faintly in a bowl of riverstone, and the forest whispered outside, not to lure, not to threaten, but to welcome. The days that followed were quiet, but not ordinary. Elsha rose early and walked the edge of the fields where the woods began. The golden sapling hummed against her back, its leaves shifting in time with her breath. Wherever she stepped, the grass grew a shade greener, the air clearer. Magic, not loud or wild, but gentle, like dew on spider silk, followed her. Gran watched closely. She never asked questions, not the kind others did. She simply made tea stronger and bread sweeter. That was her way of saying, I believe you. But Elsha knew her task was not finished. One morning, as mist curled low across the valley, she returned to the ivy wall, the very place she'd crossed into Lanternwood. The wall no longer felt like a barrier. It felt like a gate, a memory, not a warning. There, in the hollow between 3 birch trees, she knelt and took the emberling from her pouch. It had grown. Tiny roots curled around her fingers, warm as breath. The mirror around her neck shimmered faintly, and the lantern, though dim, glowed in agreement. She placed the sapling into the earth. The moment her fingers pressed soil around its roots, a wind swept through the village. Leaves danced upward. Birds paused in song. Even the river stilled. And then, it happened. A ring of light, soft and golden, bloomed outward from the tree. It passed through the village, the fields, the hills. It didn't burn. It remembered. Fences made from fear fell quiet. Stones that once marked borders now bloomed with moss and flowers. And from deep within the forest, the ember tree sang, Clark, with voice, but with presence. The 2 trees, sisters now, linked across root and air and time. Elsha sat beside the sapling as the sun rose higher. Not a girl forgotten, not a witch, not a danger, a bridge. Years passed as they always do. Whimsical changed, slowly, like ivy creeping over old stone. The villagers no longer whispered when they passed Elsha's home. They came openly now, for help with a sick child, for a blessing on a new field, or simply to sit beneath the golden leaves of the emberling tree. The lantern still hung in Elsie's window, casting warm light even on the darkest night. Some said it kept the bad dreams away. Others said it hummed a lullaby only children could hear. And Elsha, she grew, not taller, no, but deeper, like a well filled by many rains. She never stopped walking the edge of the forest. Sometimes she vanished for days, returning with stories of strange flowers or stones that sang when struck. She never forgot the hollow court, or the flame-born double she had embraced. And she never forgot the voice of the star-herder, whose face she now sometimes saw in clouds or moonlight, or the flicker of a hearth. In time, the village children grew bold enough to ask her questions. Is the forest really a lie? Or did the tree speak to you? Are you a witch? She never gave the same answer twice, because that, child, is how stories live. Not by being pinned down, but by shifting like roots under soil. And me? Well, I told you from the start. I'm her gran. I told this tale with a cup of tea and a fire that remembers better than most. Elsha went on to live well, long, and a little strangely. She didn't just walk through magic, she became it, a keeper of name. They are to be listened to. Now the fire's near out, and your eyes are growing heavy. Let the forest hold you tonight, little one. Let the light in the leaves watch your dreams, and if ever you see a flickering glow beyond the ivy wall, don't be afraid, just remember the name, Elsha Fern. The girl who followed the light and became the